in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please be seated. What were the last three words you just said? Justice for all. You see, everybody in this room swore an oath to justice. You swore from your youngest days. And for a lot of people, it's just three words we mumbled as kids. But I would like for you to make it your solemn, sacred obligation. And the ultimate injustice is to have your life stolen away, to have your children's lives stolen away. Now, we're going to talk about justice. We're going to talk about injustice, and I want you to wrap your mind around that solemn oath. And the first thing I want to do is give you a pop quiz. Oh, no. Nobody said there'd be a test. How many kids killed by school fire? All of America in the last 50 years. Total kids killed, school fire, America, 50 years. Anybody? Zero. School fire in Chicago in the 1950s, we've got 75 years ago now, was the last time any American kid was killed by school fire. Folks, half the cost of a modern building goes into fire code. We know how to save lives. We know how to do it. Fire is our model. And how many kids killed by school violence? Oh, funny you'd ask. I got some good data here for you. Now, this is a U.S. government report on the number of school shootings. Now, stop right there. Shooting is an Olympic sport. Shooting is our constitutionally protected right. The fact that that word is being used for a criminal act should enrage you. Folks, shooting baskets wins millions of dollars. Shooting movies, shooting TV shows win Emmys and Oscars. On TV and movies, soldiers shoot, cowboys shoot. Very brave, very honorable thing to do. We took our constitutionally right, the right to shoot. We took it, and we made it, they made it the word for the most evil crimes in America. And we talked about the Columbine shooters, the Virginia Tech shooters. Now they're killers. And they're not shootings, they're massacres. And we're in such stinking denial, we can't even accept the reality of what's happening. And I'd like you, as a personal favor, if you just do one thing for me, anytime you hear the word active shooter response, I want you to mock them and tell them we'd be real busy during deer season. You understand? Well, cops, we operate in a business with great precision of language. We talk about the alleged perpetrator in Class A and Class B misdemeanors in first and second degree, and then we take the most evil crimes, we call them shootings. And then cop, you're in a shooting, you condemn my own words, right? If we tell these crimes, then you're a shooter, they are killers, do you understand? And citizens in self-defense, you're shooters, you're now evil, you're condemned by your own words. Words have power. And from this point on, any time our constitutionally protected right, shooting, is being used as a term for a criminal act, I want you to get mad. Folks, you cannot possibly be angry enough at the corporate media. I will show you. However much you despise them, it's not sufficient, and I will show you. And it begins with this language that they feed to us, and we don't even see it. So, all right, the federal report talks about shootings. We're going to run with that right now. But from now on, when you hear that word shooting, I want alarm bells to go off, and I want your blood pressure to go up. You understand? All right, so here we are now. Right over here is the Jonesboro School Massacre and the Columbine School Massacre, and then we brought it down a little bit. But then here we are, 2005, up. Then we brought it down. I was there. I was in the middle of all of this. I was there on the night of the Jonesboro Massacre. I was there after Columbine. And we took major steps, and in spite of everything, it's up, and then we brought it back down again. There we are in the right about 2010, major national issue. You don't hear about the ones we stop. Today, the Columbine killers would have been caught 3 times over. You would have never heard about it. But in spite of everything, oh, and by the way, dark green are the number of incidents with loss of life. Light green are the number of incidents with injuries only. Just put it in perspective. And here we are, it goes up and up and up. And up in that last year, the 21 graduating year, half the year they didn't go to school. And this still set a new record, dead by violence in the schools. So everybody out there, help me assign a grade. What kind of grade do we give the firefighter of keeping our kids safe from fire? Come on, what's our fire grade? What do you give the firefighter? Yeah. Even the cops reluctantly give the firefighter an A. Oh, you got to understand about cops and firefighters, yeah? You know, the life of a firefighter, yeah? They sleep till they're hungry, yeah? Eat till they're tired, repeat as necessary. They walk in the door and they get an A, yeah? You know what really bothers cops? Firefighters get paid to sleep, yeah? Only firefighters and prostitutes make money in bed, yeah? All you fire guys out there, you know, we're teasing. We're just jealous. All right, so what's our violence grade? What kind of grade do we get for keeping our kids safe from violence? What's our grade? Nobody gets an F anymore. How about needs improvement? Huh? We said, Johnny, why can't you be like little Jimmy firefighter? He's our A student. Why can't you be like the firefighter? Denial, stinking denial. And here's the first critical point of the day. We can accept the fact that a fire would happen. But the fact that somebody is so evil, they will walk in that school and slaughter your children is just too hard. And they sink back into denial. A response to violence is totally irrational. Now, folks, the DSM, the Bible of Psychiatry and Psychology, talking about PTSD, says whenever the cause of your trauma is human in nature, the degree of trauma is usually more severe and long-lasting. Now, don't cop a pity party here. The vast majority of our cops, the vast majority of our soldiers do not get PTSD. The vast majority did not commit suicide. The vast majority are made stronger. It's called post-traumatic growth. The World War II generation, the greatest generation. Don't cop a pity party here. But the most toxic, corrosive thing that could happen to any human being is violent crime, interpersonal human aggression. This is straight out of the Bible of psychiatry and psychology. You tell me now, you tell me. Is there a difference between these two scenarios? Scenario one, tornado hits a house while you're gone, put your family in the hospital. How do you feel about that one? Well, thank God they're alive, yeah? Scenario two, criminals break into the house while you're gone and beat your family in a hospital state. How you feel? Any different? There's all the difference in the world. Physically, it's identical. Psychologically, one is a random act of nature. The other is an intentional, malignant, vicious act by a human being. One is largely unpreventable. The other is totally preventable. Do you understand? So, folks, let's go to the Uvalde school massacre in Texas. And what did the media say? Oh, we need gun laws. We need gun laws. No. What did Texas do? This is what the media is not reporting. Here's what Texas did. They passed a law, and they required three things. Number one, keep the stinking doors locked. Folks, two doors were unlocked. Exterior door unlocked, interior door unlocked. If either door had been locked, the Uvalde school massacre, as it happened, would not have been possible. Remember, it's not a shooting, it's a massacre. Now, folks, it was policy. It was school policy. It's the policy. Keep the doors locked. Yeah, it's a policy to drive 55, and we'd really appreciate it if you just do that. Until you make it the law, it's not going to happen. If you'd have told my mom to buckle those 5 kids up, she said it wasn't possible. You made it the law, boom, it got done. You understand? You make them, and folks, the Uvalde school massacre, the last security check, the guy said, I don't know why we do these checks. Every time the north and south exterior doors are unlocked. They just prop the doors open. So how stinking hard is that? Keep the doors locked. How much does that cost? Lock the stinking doors. Number one. You make them lock the door, they're safe for a day. You make it the law, they're safe from now on. Fire code is city ordinance, it's county ordinance. You don't have to wait for the state to do it. Make it the law. Number two, put the laminate film on the glass. Don't do no good to lock the door when you shoot out the glass. Open the door and slaughter the children. Sandy Hook school massacre. Folks, your kids are safe. We buzz people in. The doors are locked. It's glass. He shut out the glass, opened the door, walked in, and slaughtered 2 classrooms of precious first graders. A couple $100 of laminate film on the front door. They'd all be alive today. Folks, this is not rocket science. This is not hard. But the problem is they can't accept the fact that it would happen. If somebody said, well, it'll never happen here, that's why it happens, you understand? And they sink back into denial. And if we love our children, if we love our God, if we love our way of life, we'll hunt down every stinking bit of denial. We chew it up and we spit it out. And it's not hard. Folks, it's not hard to protect people from violence with fire as our model. But what we're fighting is denial. And then when it does happen, the impact is even worse. Do you understand? After the Sandy Hook school massacre, educators across America, what can we do? What can we do? How about starting by locking the stinking doors? Lock the door. A week later, boom, they're back in denial. They could care less. It's totally irrational. They swing back and forth from abject fear to denial. But we've got to guide them on that path. What did Texas do? 3 things. Keep the doors locked. Put the laminate film. Now, this film is not necessarily bulletproof, but it's shatterproof. You shoot holes in it. You beat on it. You ain't getting through it no time soon. Texas put it on all glass, but you really only need it on the glass on the door beside the door. Interior door, exterior door. Any glass on the door beside the door, interior door, exterior door. Now, how much does that cost? It's chump change. Half the cost of building goes into fire code. A couple $100 of laminate film on the front door with too much trouble. You get the idea? Our problem is not money. Our problem is denial. The third thing Texas did was have somebody in every school that can shoot back. And we'll talk more about that later on, folks. But statistically speaking, if there's somebody in that school that can shoot back, the probability goes way, way, way down. And if it does happen, everything changes when there's somebody there that can shoot back. 3 things. Keep that doors locked. How much does that cost? Laminate film on the glass, on the door, beside the door. Have somebody there that can shoot back. This is not rocket science. But you got to recognize we're fighting denial. And then when it does happen, people are shattered. They're devastated. And when there's things they could have done, and they didn't do it, and children die, they will live the rest of their life in hell. Do you understand? Cops, soldiers, we prepare for a lifetime. When it happens, we're ready. You live your life in denial, pretend it will never happen, and then violence happens. And that's why people are shattered and destroyed. Denial kills us twice. It kills us once physically and twice psychologically. Preparation saves us twice. It saves us once physically, but even if you fail, you can live with yourself because you did everything that could reasonably have been done. Do you understand? Denial is our enemy. As we love our children, as we love our way of life, we can prepare for violence like we prepare for fire. Are you with me so far? Interpersonal human aggression. Toxic, corrosive, destructive. Don't cop a pity party. But this is what we're fighting. An irrational response. Number 2, the situation is much, much worse than it looks. And folks, I train cops in all 50 states. I think I'm the only person ever to be state certified in all 50 states. 27 years. I enlisted in the Army in 1974, got out in December 97. I've been on the road ever since, a couple hundred days a year. I trained every federal agency. Last year, I had the honor at Clarksburg, West Virginia, FBI Center, 3,000 employees. I briefed there, and they had the auditorium filled full, and then I had the honor to spend time with their leadership. And they're all over this. Now listen, here's the key. We measure the problem in terms of the murder rate, the number of dead people. But the murder rate is being held down by medical technology. It's actually much, much worse than it looks. Imagine if somebody said, your grandpa made 25 cents an hour. This job pays $25 an hour. You're 100 times richer than your grandpa. That's your baloney meter going off. We all immediately understand you can't compare money without allowing for inflation. But somebody says, oh yeah, the murder rate went up in 2020, but it's still not as bad as it was in the 1960s. That's your baloney meter going off. So we got one good solid, and come up during the breaks if you come up afterwards, put dibs on some of these. They really have become kind of collectibles. You sign them, a little verse on them. They've gone up for charity auctions 4 different times. Every time made more than $200. For you, it's free. Not even dead yet. My art's worth money. Yeah, for you, it's free. So folks, one major study, UMass Harvard study, peer-reviewed journal, irrefutable data between the 1960s and the 1990s, medical technology cut the murder rate to a third or a quarter would otherwise be. That is to compare the murders between the 60s and the 90s. You have to multiply the murders in the 90s by a factor of 3 or even a factor of 4. And the leaps and bounds of life-saving technology since the 1990s is astounding. Tourniquets alone have cut the murder rate at least in half in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, nobody carried a tourniquet. Today, everybody carries a tourniquet. Fire, EMS, veterans, everybody, cops. Slap on a tourniquet, save a crime victim's life, you're prevented a murder. So what do we got? Roughly 50 murders a day in America? If just 20 to 30 times a day somebody slaps on a tourniquet, saves a crime victim's life, we cut the murder rate in half. I train our nation's largest fire EMS service several times a year for over a decade now. They tell me, they say, Dave, we guarantee you, in our city alone, 20 to 30 times a day, we slap on a tourniquet and save a crime victim's life. And tourniquets are just one of the many, many life-saving things that have come out of 20 years of war. Do you understand? We're being lied to every year. Every year they tell us a murder rate, and we don't understand how bad it is. Just like we have inflation-adjusted dollars, we need medically adjusted murders. And that's what the folks in Clarksburg are beginning to work on, and maybe they'll do something, maybe not. I think we have leadership, but we got to get the word out. And once we begin to accurately measure the problem, we will see how stinking bad it actually is. And we'll begin to take action on it. Do you want to walk out that door and start making a difference right up front? You let people know. Medical technology is holding down the murder rate. Just like we have an inflation-adjusted dollars, we need medically adjusted murders. Boom, one sentence. One sentence. Get the info out and transform the way we see the situation. It's bad. It's much, much worse than it looks. So folks, with all that said, let's start taking a look now at what's going on out there. Now this is the number of murders in America. Now here we are in 2006, and we have 17,000 Americans murdered. In 2008, 16,000. 2009, 15,000. 2010, 14,000. This is medical technology, police technology doing its job. And then it levels out, and you'll see across the years it goes up, down, up, down. But then in 2014, 2015, exploded like nothing we ever saw before. So what happened in 15, 16? What happened? You know, the FBI guys put this together. They called it the Ferguson effect. Remember the media coverage of the Ferguson incident? Remember that sick narrative that the cops are evil and the criminals are the victims. The cops are the oppressors of innocent people, and the criminals are the innocent victims. This sick lie, this twisted misrepresentation that law and order is bad and criminals are good. I will tell you how many people the media killed with that sick narrative. I will tell you exactly how many people that killed. 1,722 dead Americans. The following year, that many, plus 1,367 the following year it stayed there. And they've got this blood on their hands, folks. It is a direct cause and effect relationship going on out there. And remember, for every dead American, there are many, many more that are maimed and scarred, that live their life in fear and horror. And how many even knew about the Ferguson effect? How many even knew what happened those 2 years? How many knew? Yeah. But now I want to show you something that'll blow your doors off. Let's look at the Minneapolis effect. And folks, this is from the New York Times. And they said there is no precedent for what happened in 2020. So why did they bury it in a Sunday supplement and never mention it again? And now this is the year-over-year increase, decrease in homicides. In the 1960s, up this much more, bloop, 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 bloop. They all kind of stack on top. Went down for a year, and then up, up, up. Then down for a couple of years. But if we allow for medical technology, it ain't down at all. Just not up quite so much. And then here we go, up, 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 up. Look at the 1990s, down, 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 down. But number one, we doubled and tripled per capita incarceration during the 90s. Number two, if we allow for medical technology, it ain't down at all, folks. It just ain't up quite so much, you hear me? If we allow for medical technology, virtually every single year, year after year, it's been up, 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 up. All right, so folks, here's a time as we entered into the 2000s, a little up, down, up, down. It should be going down, 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 down. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And there is the Ferguson effect. See those 2 years? Now, it's equal to anything we've ever had before. But if you allow for medical technology, it's orders of magnitude worse than anything we've ever had before. This is New York Times. And there's 2020, folks. Straight out of the New York Times. And then they buried it because they said, whoops. This points the finger right back at us. This is the George Floyd effect. This is that sick narrative. Now, the death of George Floyd was a tragic incident worthy of concern, but the twisted, sick narrative that came out of that, the vast numbers of lives that went slaughtered, the harm that was done to our civilization. And let me show you only one other place ever even reported on it. It was good. It was a Pew Research. And what the Pew folks told us is, here it is again. Now, here it is again, but look at this. They included 9/11. Now, this is per capita versus the raw numbers. And here's 9/11. Boom, it went up. Boom, it went down. 2020, it went up, and then up another 4% the following year. And it's whittled down a little bit, it says 2020, but we haven't even begun. We haven't even come close to coming back to where we were before 2020. How many of y'all knew this? How many of y'all saw this? Why in the hell don't we know this? Why is this front page news? Because it points the finger right back at them. They have this blood on their hands, this sick, twisted narrative that law and order is bad and criminals are good. You see, and they're all invested in this narrative that the world divides into the oppressor and the oppressed. And the cops are the oppressors, and the criminals are the oppressed. And the oppressor can do the oppressor deserves whatever they get. Kill the oppressor, hunt them down, they deserve it. And the oppressed can do whatever they want. That's why when we see October 7th in Israel, this idea that the Palestinians, they're the oppressed. They can do whatever they want. Rape, kill, slaughter. They do it. And the oppressor, they deserve it. This is one of the sickest possible narratives. And the price we pay for this is stunning. Now, a real smart lady, and folks, we're going to make all of this data electronically available on the website of the people who invited me here. Also, videos being shot, and it'll be available also. And we encourage you to put it to work. But here's a smart lady, Heather McDonald, the Manhattan Institute, and she covered it well. She said 2020's violent crime increase, call it Ferguson 2.0, Minneapolis effect, has come on with the speed and magnitude that make Ferguson 1.0 seem tranquil. She said George Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police, and by the way, it began in May. 2020, fine, May, boom. It began in May of 2020. George Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police in late May was justly condemned. But the event has now spurred an outpouring of contempt against the pillars of law and order that has no what? There's that word again. No what? No precedent. There is no precedent. We have never seen anything remotely like it. This is on Fox. It's a little blip on Fox, then boom, it disappeared. This should be front page news. But while we saw a 30% increase in the murder of our citizens, we saw almost exactly double that in the murder of law enforcement. in spite of body armor, in spite of medical technology, in spite of evacuation tactics. The FBI director says, violence directed at law enforcement like anything we've ever seen. Here it was. Murder is up 20 to 29, 30%. Yeah. Murder of police officers up 59%. How many of y'all knew that? How many knew that our cops have been attacked? And here we are now. Since the Officer Down Memorial website's been giving us data, 2021 was the all-time record number of cops murdered in the line of duty. How many of y'all knew that? All-time record number of cops murdered in the line of duty. Executed, assassinated, hunted down, and murdered because of this sick narrative in the media. And then they just buried the data. There's another one that really should have made headlines, and once again, it was a little blip on Fox, but this is the National Fraternal Order of Police. In 2023, an all-time record number of cops shot in the line of duty. Thanks to body armor, medical technology, many, many other things. It's not the record dead. All-time record number of cops shot in the line of duty. FOP, highest recorded number. How many else saw that in the news? How many saw that in the headlines? Why not? Well, because it points a finger right back at them, see? And they simply bury it. Just the craziness that came out of all of this. Look, folks, here is the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, unruly passenger report. Look what happened. Here we are in 21. We never saw anything like this. And it's bumped its way back down again. Because right about here, the media stopped throwing the fuel on the fire. They said, whoop, this points a finger back at us, and they stopped throwing the fuel on the fire, but it's still out there, this bubbling cauldron of hate. And Canada, poor Canada, I've been tracking crime data since the 1980s from a book on killing, came out in 95. And whatever happens in America, almost the exact same thing happens in Canada. Here we are, Canada's homicide rate, the highest level in 30 years. Here we are now, here's the homicide rate. There's 2020, and there's 2021. And let's go back to this one now. And so it was really, 2020 was bad, 2021, a lot of after effects. It was really focused on cops. Well, why did it go down in 22? I asked my cops nationwide, why did it go down? Nationwide cops say, oh, easy. We don't go to that part of town no more. We know how to not be assassinated. We know how to not be executed. We know how to not be murdered. We don't go to that part of town no more. And that part of town no longer has justice. What's that oath we swore? Justice for people on the right side of town? Justice for people who don't try to kill us? How about justice for all? And whole portions of our nation have now opted out of the criminal justice system. Oh, they have somebody come get the body. But other than the number of dead bodies, the crime data coming out of inner cities is just basically zeroed out. Now, this is critical. This might be the single most important slide I've got to show you right now. This is the percentage. Now we have two crime reports out there. One is the UCR, the Uniform Crime Report. Now, the number of dead bodies is pretty good state, but after 2021, they reworked the UCR. And comparing it was a twisted thing to do. They completely reworked the UCR. It's completely unreliable. We cannot compare. Other than number of dead people, we cannot compare from beyond 21. But folks, we got the Uniform Crime Report, and then we got the National Crime Victimization Survey. What the cops are saying and what the citizens are saying. And every year, we phone thousands of Americans. Were you a victim of rape? Were you a victim of assault? So this is the difference. This is 21 to 22. This is the difference. Now, here's the Uniform Crime Report. Cops say total violent crime down 2%. Survey says up 75%. Homicides. You know, funny thing about homicides. Decade after decade, we call thousands and thousands of people. And never once somebody said, yep, I was a victim of homicide. Never once. Homicide victims can't speak for themselves. Their life has been stolen away. Their voice has been stolen away. They can't speak for themselves. We must be the speaker for the dead. We must be the ones that speak for them. Homicides, well, like I said, there was a bump down from 2020. I believe that it might have gone down 7%. The one thing about inner city, somebody's got to come pick up the bodies. It might have bumped down, but still not even close to pre-2020, pre-2020. But let's look at rape. Here's rape. Remember, interpersonal human aggression, the most psychologically corrosive thing that could happen. And right on top of that is rape. And here we are. Cops say rape's down 6%. Citizens say up 58%. Robbery. UCR, cops say down, or up 1%. Survey says up 47%. Now, aggravated assault is pretty good data if you don't hold people's feet to the fire. As soon as you say, hey, you bring ag assault down or we'll find somebody who can, and they'll make it say whatever you want to say. Where do you draw that magic line between aggravated assault and simple assault? Every cop will tell you, we'll make ag assault say whatever you want it to say. As long as you're not holding people's feet to the fire, as long as you're just getting the raw data, ag assault's fairly good data. And here we are, the ag assault. Cops say down to, what is reported to the cops, down 2%. Survey says up 104%. We have never seen anything remotely like this disparity. Why don't we know this? Why isn't this headline news? Because it points a finger right back at them. And let me just, one other breakdown of our civilization, whatever price we pay. We started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Folks, there's a biological need in every human being to be part of a larger group. And our group is our nation. Look, one person alone in the jungle is cat food. 10 people with spears are the alpha predator anywhere on the planet. There is a biological need to be part of a larger group, and our nation is our group. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we say this is our nation. When we stand for the national anthem, we say this is our group. This is who we turn to. This is who we look up to. But if athletes dishonor the anthem, if it's cool to be unpatriotic, then who will they give their allegiance to? The gangs will fill that gap in the blink of an eye. A breakdown from nationalism to tribalism, a total catastrophic breakdown of our civilization. Folks, in World War II, the mafia was on our side. They said, look, we're criminals, but we're Americans first. Today, our criminals are not even remotely on our side. Our criminals have been taught that our nation is fundamentally evil. They've been taught that our nation is evil. And when you dishonor the flag and dishonor the anthem, when it's cool to be unpatriotic, you're recruiters for the gangbangers. And gang crime and gang membership has exploded. And we don't even realize the harm that's being done. We don't even realize the harm that's being done by these overpaid athletes and this stupid behavior. But then something else is going on with older cops who don't want warriors. We don't want warrior cops. The rise of the warrior cop, the evil warriors. Now, cops need to protect and serve, but there's times when they need to attack. You see, here's the cop at the Parkland, Florida school massacre who sat outside. He was told not to be a warrior. He was told it's evil to be a warrior cop. And so he did what he was told to do. He was a protector. He sat outside and protected that school while children were slaughtered. Because nobody said it's your job to take a bullet for a kid. It's your job. We've got to be prepared to defend and to attack. And it's your job to go in there and take a bullet for a kid. No, that's not my job. Now, he was acquitted, but this is a destroyed human being. I want to show you two other destroyed human beings. This is the police chief and the school resource officer at the Uvalde, Texas school massacre. Both of them are facing over a dozen felony offenses because they didn't go in. They were told, we don't want warrior cops. We protect and serve. We don't attack. You understand? It's not your job to go in and take a bullet for a kid. And so I believe a jury in Texas will probably convict them. They will go to jail, and they will die in jail because criminals will kill them. Criminals hate cops in jail, and the cops who sat and did nothing while children were slaughtered, They will die a terrible, violent death. For all practical purpose, convicting these men will be a death sentence. And they just did what they were told to do. The police chief was a roly-poly little guy that had just been elected to the city council. They're just a product of what the media said. We don't want these warrior cops. We need defenders, and you got to have both sides of that equation. It's all about balance. You understand? And so here's our cops being told, and what we got. Again, I mentioned Heather McDonald earlier. She wrote a darn good book, A War on Cops. That's what it is, flat out war on cops. But Heather doesn't have the Minneapolis effect. She hasn't updated her book. Here's a book I commend to your attention, and it really says it better. Blue Lies, The War on Justice. It is a flat-out war on justice, not just a war on cops. What's that oath we swore? What we swore? Justice for all. It's a war on justice. They're eating away at destroying a fabric of our civilization. And let's go back to this slide real quickly, folks. Remember what the public is saying and what the cops are saying? Yeah, let's go back to that slide for a minute. You see, how many of y'all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? It's valid. The foundation of every civilization, we're safe and secure and out of danger. If the foundation crumbles, the building falls. But folks, I call it the social contract. If Pharaoh, the Romans, us, here's the deal. Here's the contract. Every government says this: obey the law, pay your taxes, and we'll help keep you safe. Ain't that the deal? Public safety is a foundation of every civilization. Obey the law, pay your taxes, and we'll help keep you safe. If we can't keep them safe, why would they obey your stinking laws? Why would they pay your stinking taxes when you can't fulfill the minimum obligation? Public safety is the one irreplaceable ingredient. You will see money being thrown at this problem when we understand the problem. Look, we're a wealthy nation, and our answer to most problems is to throw money at it. We throw money wisely and discerningly and well. That's how we won World War II. We were the arsenal of democracy. We funded the democracy around the world. Half the stuff the Russians fought with were our stuff. How we win the Cold War? We outspent the Russians. What we do in the pandemic? We threw trillions of dollars at it. When the public begins to understand how stinking bad it is, and the fact that the stinking media has been covering this stuff because it points a finger right back at them. When the public understands how bad it is, we'll start throwing money at this problem. And we'll start devoting the resources that are needed. But we got to get the word out. We have a wonderful lady here, Jeannie Ivey, who was Jeannie Ives, who ran for the governor here. Give her a big hand. Give Jeannie a big hand. One of my personal heroes here. But folks, when people like that get the word, when they start getting the word out, when we start spreading it, when copies of these slides start getting out, when people start screaming and they understand, I have faith in our nation. I have faith in our way of life. And we will turn the tide. Do you understand? We can turn this tide, and it's all about getting the word out. And a lot of my cops, they say, Dave, you're preaching to the choir. Well, we preach to the choir, we get missionaries. We need missionaries here to go out there and distribute this information and get electronic copies of this data and put it out there. But I want to talk about something else here now. A very fundamental question. What is the opposite of evil? What defeats evil is light defeats darkness. Now, you stay with me here. I think a good answer that'll help. The fundamental question in the law enforcement and first responder community is, why do we stay in this fight? Our cops being murdered and condemned and attacked. Recruiting is down, retention is down. Why would anybody want to be a cop in this day and age? And all I can do is tell you why I'm still in the fight. Look, I'm 68 years old. I spent 24 years in the Army away from my family. And then I retired, and for the last 27 years, I've been out on the road doing this. A couple hundred days a year for the last 27 years. Waiting at home for me is my bride of 49 years, my high school sweetheart. She was 15. I was 17 when I proposed to her. We are from Arkansas. Yeah. 2 years later, she married a crazy Army paratrooper. This coming July, will be 50 years ago. When a little 17-year-old girl flew out to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, married PFC Grossman. And been in this ride with me 24 years of my Army wife, and then 27 years of this. I love her more than life itself. I get home 1, 2, 3, 4 nights a week, conjugal visit, clean underwear, back on the road. Why do I spend this time away from my love of my life? Why do I do that? Why would anybody do that? I'll tell you why. The only people on earth more precious than my bride are my children, my grandchildren. I have a son that just retired after 9 combat tours, 3 Bronze Stars, and I got a grandson deployed to Kuwait now. Now, he's a smart kid. His uncle went Spec Ops, his grandpa went infantry, Ranger, and he went Intel. Yeah. And he's engaged to a girl he met in Intel school. Now, if you could pick your daughter-in-law, you would want to have a girl with a top secret security clearance, yeah? That's pretty cool. In the blink of an eye, I will be a great-grandfather. And we believe if we love our children, if we love our grandchildren, if we love our nation, if we love our God, we'll give 100%. See, that's what love means. Love means the worse you get, the harder you fight. You understand? And I submit to you the opposite of evil is love. Evil is the absence of love, just as darkness is the absence of light. You know what makes a great cop? You know what makes a great first responder? Is empathy. Empathy is love in action. Empathy says, what if it was my family trapped in that burning building? What if it was my child that had been murdered? What if my spouse that had been assaulted? And love is what makes a great first responder. Ain't nobody doing that job to get stinking, filthy American dream rich, at least not legally. And no first responder out there doing that job to be a famous celebrity, at least not in a good way. And Jesus said, greater love is no one than this, that they lay down their life for their friends. So what manner of love is this? That men and women walk out that door every day and lay their life down for strangers. What manner of love is this? That these magnificent men and women walk out the door every day and put their life on the line, willing to die for people they never even met. But hear that verse one more time. Greater love is no one than this, that they lay down their life for their friends. But there are many ways to lay down your life. There are many ways to lay down your life. Sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. To place the welfare of your family and your children ahead of your own. To walk out the door every day of your life and do a dirty, dangerous, thankless job to the best of your ability. Because you know if nobody did it, our civilization would be doomed. Not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. For most of us, therein lies the greatest love. Do you understand? And so that raises a question, a terribly important question. I tell all my first responders and everybody else, I said, you got to have the answer to this question. It's absolutely essential. In these tragic and violent times, and folks, our first responders see every terrible thing that happens. I mean, their job, pick the worst thing that happens every day and go there. And they can't help but ask the question, in these terrible, violent times, you can't help but ask the question, how could a loving God allow these terrible things to happen? And the answer is really, really important. And I talk about this in my book on spiritual combat, because in the end, it's a battle against forces of evil. And you leverage your faith into your relationship, the Bulletproof Marriage. And we just sent Bulletproof Family to the publisher. The sequel to On Spiritual Combat's On Spiritual Warfare. It's out there. But folks, the answer to that question is very simple. How could a loving God allow these terrible things to happen? And the answer is simple. A loving God would not make you his puppet and manipulate everything that happens every day. Look, sooner or later, we're all going to die. Does that mean God failed? Now, you've got to understand. You ever heard, if you truly love something, let it go? If it comes back, it's yours. That's how much God loves us. He loves us enough to let us make our own decisions. And that means a lot of people make bad decisions. A lot of bad things happen. You say, God, why don't you do something? He said, I did. I sent you. Do you understand? You swore an oath to justice. In this nation, we are all peace officers. We have all sworn an oath to justice. I said, God, why don't you do something? He said, I did. I sent you. Do you understand? He sent his son to die for us. He sent his son to be tortured and murdered for us. Do we deserve any less? His greatest, don't curse God when he doesn't answer your prayer the way you think he should. You see, in the end, everybody's going to die, physically. In the end, every nation will fall over my dead body. But eternity continues. If you're a Christian, do not let the things of this world pull you down. Do not give way to despair. Do you understand me? Otherwise, you've lost the battle. This is not our home. We're soldiers deployed to a war zone. When we die, we got to go home. Do you understand? And so, folks, just recognize that if we give way to despair, then we have given victory to the enemy. Our life is a life of triumph, and God's greatest gift is not give us a few more years, not give us a little less suffering. God's greatest gift is to give us eternity in heaven. And the first principle of spiritual warfare is understand that the infinite over the finite. And infinity is literally infinitely greater than anything else. You understand? So stay focused. Our nation is the instrument God has given to bless us on this earth. And when we're gone, it will be the instrument that blesses our children and our grandchildren. Do you understand? It is worthy of fighting for. It is worthy of dying for. But keep the big picture. Yeah. So love means the worse it gets, harder we fight. Yeah. And things are bad. Things are crazy bad. And the crazy part is we don't even know. We are flat out losing the war on crime. The fabric of our civilization is being eroded by a cancer of crime, a virus of violence, and we don't even know it. Because the pain receptors have been turned off and are lying. Because it points a finger right back at them. Do you understand? And recognize that it is worldwide. One of the great lies is this only happening in America. And what's happening in Mexico, around the planet, violence is exploded at level, and these are murder rates. What we know about murder rate is being held down by medical technology. Around the world, they're using tourniquets. They make bicycle inner tubes, make tourniquets out of. They're poor, but they're not stupid. And they're saving lives the same way around the planet. The number of dead people in all these nations underrepresent the information. You won't believe what I had to go through to get this Interpol data. Now remember, serious assault, ag assault's pretty good data if we allow for medical technology, right? In between 77 and 03, the serious assault's good data if we don't hold their feet to the fire. If there's no, and so violent crime doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples between 77 and, so why's my data stop in 03? Why don't I update my slide? They stopped reporting the data. Go to the Interpol website, look up their biannual crime report. They stopped reporting the data because the nations did not want people comparing between nations. I guarantee if they're better, they'd be saying so. Violent crime doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples around the planet. No stinking idea how bad it's been for the last 20 years. You bet anything you want. If it's better, they'd be saying so. So what's the new factor in all these nations? What's the new factor in all these nations? What's the new factor in our nation? Some have gun control, some have death penalty, some have immigration, some have racial tension, some have population density, some have abortion, some don't. I'm not saying these things aren't important. They're all important. Whatever your pet topic is, I will show you a nation that has it. I will show you a nation that doesn't have it. And they both have a doubling, tripling, quadrupling of violent crime. What's the one new factor in all these nations? The sick movies, the sick TV shows, the sick video games. Whatever it is, it's not the guns. Whoa, what about those high-capacity semi-automatic military weapons, right? Nobody needs one of those. What, like an M1 carbine? 7 million of these were manufactured in World War II. After World War II, millions of them flooded the market. Up until 1968, any kid at any age could order one of these through the U.S. mail, and the friendly mailman would deliver it to your door. Let me say that again. Up until 1968, any kid at any age could order one of these through the mail, and the mailman would deliver it to your door. Now, we're good with changing that law, yeah. We're good with the current situation, but there's not some evil new gun out there. The whole gun thing is a lie trying to point the finger somewhere else. It's evil guns, it's evil cops. No, it's them. It's the media, it's the sick movies, the sick TV shows, the twisted misrepresentation of the data. They have this blood on their hands. And this is the whole anti-gun thing, is them desperately pointing the finger somewhere else. You cannot understand what's going on without understanding why they're doing this. I co-authored a book with Glenn Beck. Great guy, Glenn Beck, in person. I think I wrote more of the book than he did. He gets his name on the front. That's how it works. New York Times bestseller. New York Times bestseller. Best book ever done on the subject. First 2/3 of the book say the guns have always been there. The last third of the book say, what is the new factor? It's a home run hit. The sick movies and TV shows and video games fed to the children. The way they turn the killers into celebrities. It's all this blood is in the media's hands. And so New York Times bestseller, not one single review. Other than Goodreads and Amazon, nothing. Nobody. Online, nobody. Folks, you can attack a New York Times bestseller. What you cannot do is have the entire industry absolutely refuse to give it any oxygen. That's what we're dealing with here. An entire industry that simply refuses to give any oxygen to any information other than their lies. So folks, my book, Assassination Generation, I recommend very highly. It's basically an update on Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill, although that's still a very useful and important book. But we're going to come back to this book in a minute. I was invited to the White House as part of President Trump's roundtable on violent video games, the first administration. I wish I had the data and the info to tell him at that time that medical technology is holding down the murder rate. He'd have been on top of it. Just like we have inflation-adjusted dollars, we need medically adjusted murders. Boom! If I could get one sentence to the president, that would be it. And we'll pick it up and run with it. And folks, we'll come back to the book, but just let me show you a little more that's going on here. Here's a USA Today report. Study confirms link between violent video games and physical aggression. Duh. AMA, APA, Surgeon General, Attorney General, over and over again. But here's a good study. It's Indiana University Med School, IU Med School. Here's your kid's brain. Here's your kid's brain on video games. Violent visual imagery inflicted upon children. And their body goes into fight or flight mode. Fight or flight hormones are flooding through this kid's brain right now. Logical, predictive left brain processing is catastrophically shut down when you're actively fighting for your survival. Folks, when you're desperately fighting for survival, where your meal comes from tomorrow is not even on your radar screen. When these fight or flight hormones are flooding through the kid's body, the violent movies and TV shows, and especially the video games inflicted upon children. This is the impact. You grab this kid, you tell him, don't you understand? If you don't do your homework, you're going to fail. No, he's incapable of grasping that. You tell him, don't you understand? You take a gun to school, your life is irredeemably over. No, he doesn't understand. Again, this is all in my book. So based on this research and much, much more, in 2005, the state of California overwhelmingly voted to regulate children's access to violent video games. How many of y'all knew that? 2005, California. Silicon Valley said, yeah, we're good with this. Hollywood said, yeah, we're good with this. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, 2005, regulating children's access to violent video games. Arnold Schwarzenegger signed the law. How many of y'all knew that happened? And the video game industry fought all the way to the Supreme Court. They said, we have a constitutional First Amendment right to sell any game to any kid at any age. You cannot stop us. You cannot regulate us in any way, shape, or form. And they lied and they cheated. And I think the state of California just they threw the case. In front of the Supreme Court, they just threw the case. And they conned 7 old men that never played Pong in their life, overturned the California law. But the 2 dissenting opinions are powerful and important. In spite of California just throwing the case, in spite of that, 2 powerful dissenting opinions, Clarence Thomas and Stephen Breyer, who I believe have never dissented on the same side before. So folks, this is powerful data. How many of y'all knew about that? How many knew they fought to the Supreme Court to sell any game to any kid at any age? How many knew the state of California overwhelmingly voted? No, it's all shoved down the memory hole. And the people responsible for our news will simply shove it down the memory hole because it comes back to making money and selling these things because there is a powerful drive. So we need our sheepdogs. Now, folks, my book on combat, I commend your attention for the psychology and physiology of combat, also Marine Corps Commandant's required reading list, translated in many languages and many police academies. It was translated in Ukrainian, and last year it won the Ukraine Book of the Year Award. And in May and June of last year, the government brought me out to Ukraine, and I trained their troops from one end to the other of Ukraine. And I introduced the concept of being the sheepdog. And we took it a step further. We talked about being God's faithful sheepdog. We introduced the idea of being the sheepdog in this book. And then we did the Sheepdog Kids book. I actually have the U.S. government trademark for the term sheepdog as a protector. And then we took it the next step, and we did the next Sheepdog Kids book. Why Mommy Carries a Gun. Yeah. Now, if anybody's going to carry a gun, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunts, or uncle, if anybody's going to carry a gun, here's what we want the kids to know. Find a gun, stop, don't touch. 4 universal gun safety laws, famous sheepdog throughout history, Second Amendment. Just truly, truly a valuable and useful tool. But when I signed this book, every book has a verse. And folks, the Word of God is alive and powerful. It's alive. The Holy Spirit indwells within it. And I put a verse with every book. And I pull that power in. The verse for this one is fun. It's Luke 22:36. The Last Supper is over. Jesus is minutes away from being arrested and executed. One of the very last things he says, I told you before, and I sent you out, and I said, don't even take your cloak with you. Now I tell you, sell your cloak and buy a sword. What would Jesus do? He said, bad times are coming. He said, arm yourself. Now remember Peter, they came to arrest Jesus, and Peter whips out his sword. And Jesus said, no, put it away. This is the law. This is just a cop doing his job. If you raise the sword against the lawful authority, you will die by the sword, rightfully administered by the lawful authority. He's not saying the right to self-defense is not there. He's not saying that Christians shouldn't use a sword. He's saying you don't interrupt and cut the ear off the cop who's just doing his job. But the right to self-defense, one of the very last things Jesus told us, sell your cloak. The modern translation, I love this one. I've seen it on a t-shirt. Yeah. Modern translation, yeah. Sell your coat and buy an AR-15. Yeah. and not just the right, the responsibility. Because what's our mission? To love God and love people. And the Bible says love always protects. Love always protects. And if we are not protecting, then we're not loving. I am my family's Secret Service, and I'm good. And I, praise God, I live in a nation where my family can have the same protection the president does. Do you understand? And that's a nation worth fighting and dying for. Do you understand? And so the right of Christians to protect themselves, I tell you, it's not just a right, it's a responsibility to protect. Not all of us should be carrying a gun, but all of us should be focusing on protecting. Keep those doors locked. Put that laminate film on that glass. Take your part of the world and make it as safe as humanly possible. Jesus said, a new commandment I give you. to love one another, a new commandment. Does it replace the 10 commandments, or is it an 11th commandment? There's actually debate on that. But a new commandment I give you, to love one another as I have loved you. And love always protects. If we're not protecting, we're not loving. Do you understand? And sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. And so, folks, I show you a little more going on here, and you got to understand the big picture on all of this. Here is a friend of mine, Phil Chalmers, wrote a book called Inside the Mind of a Teen Killer. He's interviewed hundreds of teen killers. He's surveyed hundreds of them. He's got a chapter in the book, How to Create a Teen Killer in 10 Easy Steps. All the old problems are still there. All the old problems are still important. But every single one of these kids he has ever interviewed, every single one of them has one new factor. Every one of them is dropped out of life and watched some movie 50 times. The Columbine killers watched the movie Natural Born Killers over 50 times. Folks, prior to the 1980s, it was not possible to watch a movie 50 times. How many of y'all remember Betamax and VHS and Big Battle? You remember that? You're aging yourself. A generation doesn't understand. If a movie wasn't in the theater, if it wasn't on TV, you couldn't watch it. It wasn't possible to watch a movie 50 times. Every one of these kids has played some video game 24 hours a day, endlessly. And this is the new factor across the board. And by the way, folks, that word shooter versus killer, yeah, I do a lot of training and educators, and they're receptive, and it goes well. But Phil and I were laid on to train a conference, and the teacher said, we don't want this guy. He's calling them killers. They're shooters. They're not killers. What stinking denial. They can't even accept that word killer. They don't want to hear what this guy says because he calls them killers. Do you understand the depth of the denial? And then you understand why they won't even lock the stinking doors. Make it the law and they'll do it. But meanwhile, they're going to sink their head in the sand in stinking denial and refuse to even use the word killer. Oh, they're shooters. What's the difference? In their mind, there isn't. I don't want to hear that word. But folks, let's go back to the video game in all of these. Remember the El Paso Walmart massacre. Now, the vast, vast majority of these attacks are places where concealed carry is not allowed. This is an exception, but the El Paso Walmart massacre, look what the little coward said. It's not cowardly to pick low-hanging fruit. Don't attack heavily guarded areas. Folks, if there's somebody there that can shoot back, the probability goes way, way down. To fulfill your super soldier Call of Duty stinking video game fantasy. He flat said what he's doing. I had the honor to brief Vice President Pence, second time invited to the White House. I showed this to the Vice President. He said, why wasn't that in the news? Yes, sir. Why wasn't that in the news? He flat said what he's doing. To fulfill your super soldier Call of Duty stinking video game fantasy. Remember the Parkland, Florida school massacre? The worst high school massacre in American history, yeah? Yeah, here's what the news told us about that killer. The neighbor said he escaped his misery by playing video games, 8, 12, 15 hours a day. It was kill, 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 blow some more, and kill some more all day long. Yeah, Miami Herald, buried and never mentioned again. One other news media mentioned it. Give them credit, they mentioned it. South Florida Sun Sentinel. He's an avid video gamer, frequently played as much as 15 hours or more a day. Yeah, they buried it and never mentioned it again. These are the only two media outlets that even mention it. Isn't it important? The all-consuming, all-pervasive thing in the killer's life. Why won't they report it? Because it points a finger right back at them. Their entire industry has got this blood on their hands, and they simply censor it. Now, there's another angle going on here. I had the honor of writing forward a book called Mass Killers by a Secret Service agent named Mike Rock. And he talks about how they're seeking fame and the fame factor and all these, how they're obsessed with the Columbine killers and the Parkland killer and how they want to do the same thing. And he talks about how the fame is a big motivation and the media feeds this fame and has this blood on their hands. Then here's the Parkland, Florida school killer. My name is blank. Never say their name. Folks, anybody remember the New Zealand mosque massacres? This guy he loaded it straight to the internet where it will never go away. He live streamed himself in 2 different mosques in New Zealand slaughtering people. And the Prime Minister of New Zealand said this man did what he did for notoriety, for fame. And we will not give it to him. She said, New Zealand will never say this man's name. New Zealand will never show this man's picture. She said, New Zealand will not even give him his name. Boom! Somebody gets it. Make him nothing, make it nobody. Okay, for the first week, little bitty picture, once the name, and then boom, we're done. Stop turning these killers into celebrities. So go back to the Parkland, Florida killer. He said, my name is blank. I'm going to be the next school shooter. See, he embraced that word shooter. I'm not going to commit a murder. I'm going to commit a massacre. I'm going to be a shooter. And he said, what did he say? And when you see me on the news, you'll know who I am. What's his motive? Fame. He flat said why he's doing it. Anybody remember the Oxford, Michigan school killer? I'd show you his picture. I'd tell you his name. You'd recognize him. That's not right. This is the one where the parents were also convicted. But folks, here's his little sad entry in his little journal. I want the world to remember me. What's his fame? What's his motive? He flat told you. And the media feeds these crimes by turning these killers into celebrities. Now here's one of the more recent ones. We got 4 dead in a school in Georgia. Now look at the killer. He said he was obsessed with the massacre at the Parkland, Florida school massacre with 17 dead. He was obsessed with this school massacre. That's why he did it. But look what they did. Look what they did. There's his name. There's his name. There's his picture. There's his name again. And that's why he did it. And the media keeps feeding these killers. And I will tell you what's coming next, folks. I pray that I'm wrong. What's the goal? Fame. They've got to commit ever more shocking and horrible acts. Elementary school massacre has been done. You know what's coming next? I pray that I'm wrong, and I'll show you it's happening around the world, is daycare massacres. It's happening around the planet. It's coming to us like a freight train. And they've got to commit ever more evil, violent, shocking, stunning acts to get in the media, and the media is feeding it. And they don't care. They simply censor the information. And folks, most of these kids playing these games, they don't become killers. They become vicious little bullies. Look, in healthy play, whenever somebody gets hurt, the play stops. Everybody in this room, even you ladies, and one time or another, we probably played toy guns. Said, bang, bang, I got you. No, you didn't. You smack him with your cap gun, it leaves a mark and he cries. Everybody gather around the hurt kid and try to convince him not to tell mom, right? Somebody gets hurt, the play stops. A basketball game, a football game, when players gets hurt, the fans go silent, the play stops. In healthy play, whenever somebody gets hurt, the play stops. In the video game, for endless hours, you blow your playmates' heads off and explosions of blood. They beg for mercy, they writhe in pain. Vivid, realistic depictions. Does the play stop? You get points. This is pathological play. This is dysfunctional play. And this is what they fought all the way to the Supreme Court to sell to any kid at any age. But folks, what they're being taught is to take pleasure from human death and suffering. And we're raising vicious little bullies. All the school killers are bullied. The bullies have bullies. Do you remember the bully when you were a kid? You remember that when you were a kid, that bully who sincerely took pleasure in making you suffer? Because there's many, many more of those kids out there today who've been taught by those video games at young age to take pleasure in human death and suffering. All right, what I'm going to show you next now is the most important aspect of all. I'm going to tie it all together. It comes out of nowhere, and I think you'll find it of great value. You see, the result of these video games, grab this one if you like, and I'll sign it. John 15:13, greater love is no one than this on it, right? We're in the middle of a global epidemic of sleep deprivation. Those video games that they fought to the Supreme Court are designed to steal your sleep. The text messaging, the social media, they all steal your sleep. And streaming shows, they all steal your sleep. We're in the middle of a global epidemic of sleep deprivation. Now, this is critical. Being sleep deprived is just like being drunk. Our entire civilization is filled with sleep deprived people. And the primary impact, it is just like being drunk. 24 hours without sleep, 24 hours without sleep, and your impaired judgment, just like blowing 0.10 above legally drunk blood alcohol level. On the third day without sleep, you are psychotic. Any graduate of Army Ranger School will tell you about hallucinations on the third day without sleep. I will make anybody in this room psychotic. You will hear things and see things that are not there on the third day without sleep. And we have those people all around us. Have you ever played the video game and suddenly it's 4 o'clock in the morning? No idea where the last 8 hours went. It's time to get up and get dressed and go to work. They do that on purpose. It's called a flow state. Vast amounts of research. Each generation is ever more immersive, ever more powerful, and the one outcome is to steal your sleep. And so here's what I want you to know. We're in the middle of a global epidemic of suicide. Now, every nation, every demographic group except the Amish have seen suicides explode. Right now, it is physically impossible for you to take your life. The drive to self-preservation is too powerful. But you add alcohol, and alcohol inhibits that drive to self-preservation. You got all these other problems, you add alcohol, and alcohol becomes the catalyst that makes it possible to take your life. Alcohol, in the huge majority of our suicides, alcohol is a contributing factor, and sleep deprivation is just the same way. Look, you're only drunk for a brief window. You're sleep deprived for long, and it just gets worse and worse. And there's not many kids out there getting drunk on a steady basis, but there are many, many kids sleep deprived on a horrendous basis. Folks, suicide is the #1 killer of our first responders. We lose more cops to suicide than every other line of duty death put together. Now again, the vast, vast majority do not commit suicide. But if we gave a damn about police suicide, the first thing we'd look at is sleep management. Sleep deprivation is a huge factor, so I want you to start doing your own research now. Do an online search, suicide and sleep deprivation. The data is overwhelming. I lost a little brother to suicide. I lost 2 nephews to suicide. As a West Point psych professor, I studied suicide intensely. It enrages me that it wasn't until a decade ago that I found out about the link between sleep deprivation and suicide. The data's there. It's overwhelming. It's huge. Do your own research. Sleep deprivation, suicide. Boom, study after study. One of the major studies says not only is sleep deprivation a key factor in suicide, it's the most remediable factor. Look, we can't do much about your finances or your relationships, but we can get some sleep right thinking now. Do you understand? It's the most remediable factor. So here's parenting 101 and grandparenting 101 for the 21st century. Look, folks, teen suicides have exploded. Teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old. Teenage girls' suicides have tripled in the last decade, and that was pre-pandemic. During the pandemic, almost all suicides exploded, even above beyond that. So when you send your kids to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. No laptop in the room, no TV, no cell phone. They have got to go to their room and sleep. A cop came up to me during a break in a class. He said, I had one of those teenagers. He said, she was a good girl. She was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my cell phone every night, family policy. Cell phone goes in the charger, you can go to bed. I said, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my phone every night. You can trust me. Okay, I trust you. Take your cell phone. He said, a little while later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And we never knew the hell she was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. They were tag teaming her. They took shifts to tag team her all night long, night after night. And you can't just ignore that. We're not wired that way. He said it was heart-rending. She up all night long, night after night, trying to defend herself. He said, I immediately understood my little girl was bullied to death. He said, what I didn't understand until now, she was sleep deprived, tormented and bullied to death in front of my eyes, and I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message in the middle of the night. How can we expect our kids to? He said, the one thing on earth I'd done for my little girl was take her phone every night, let her turn off all the bad stuff in this world. Who's going to be your mommy? Who's going to make you get that sleep, folks? Let's keep rocking along now. We're talking about sleep deprivation and suicide. It's huge. And sleep deprivation and traffic deaths. Decade after decade, we brought traffic deaths down. Airbags, seatbelts, medical technology. And for the last decade, worldwide, traffic deaths have exploded. I heard the data just yesterday. Traffic deaths are the #1 killer of teenagers in America. I also heard that suicide's the #1 killer of teenagers in America. But folks, look, there's a reason why airline pilots and truck drivers and 20 other professions required by federal law to get enough sleep. And folks, if you got kids that are driving, you should be scared sick about traffic deaths. And the single greatest gift you give those kids is to make sure they get a good night's sleep before they get behind the wheel of that vehicle. And we never knew that. I had 3 teenage boys. Now I got teenage grandkids. And I was scared sick about traffic deaths. And it wasn't nearly as bad as now. I made sure they all had cars with airbags, and 2 out of 3 tested those airbags. But nobody ever told me the most important thing is to make sure they get a good night's sleep. Boom! And so folks, sleep deprivation is a huge factor in mental illness. There can be absolutely no doubt. You want to have an impact on mental illness? I will make anybody in this room flat psychotic through sleep deprivation. Do an online search, sleep deprivation and traffic deaths, sleep deprivation, suicide, and sleep deprivation and mental illness. Boom! It's overwhelming. It's huge. What can we do about mental illness? Sleep. We're in the middle of this global epidemic of sleep deprivation. And do an online search again. It's undeniable. So why don't we know? Why aren't there public service announcements? Say, turn off that video game. Stop binge watching those shows. Why don't the TV tell us to turn it off? Because they just want to keep making money. And they fought the Supreme Court to sell this stuff to our children. Do you understand? So there's a huge link between sleep deprivation and suicide and traffic deaths and mental illness and chronic pain. We've all had a bad night's sleep. We hurt the next day, yeah? And that is the link to the opiate epidemic. Why opiates? Why are opiates a drug of choice? Fentanyl's an opiate, almost entirely illegal. And illegal use of fentanyl is killing somewhere between 60 and 80,000 Americans every year. And folks, in the entire Vietnam War, in 20 years of Vietnam, we lost a little less than 60,000 Americans. We lose far more than that every year to fentanyl. And what about prescription opiates? Why are they all in demand? Why are opiates a drug of choice? Why? Because we're in the middle of a global epidemic of sleep deprivation. Doc, I heard all the time, give me a pill to fix it. And when you're sleep deprived, your body craves rest. That first hit of opiates is the first real rest you've had in forever. And your body is vulnerable to opiates when you're sleep deprived. And you've got impaired judgment. Just taking drugs is impaired judgment. So the 3 major killers that have exploded: suicide, traffic death, mental illness, opiate overdoses. Drug overdoses are the #1 killer of American adults by far. Well, what's the new factor worldwide? Folks, sleep deprivation is a huge factor in Alzheimer's and dementia. Folks, people say, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead. You have a decade of Alzheimer's first, you idiot. Why? Why is Alzheimer's exploding? Why is dementia exploding? Has anybody ever heard the link between dementia and sleep deprivation? Do an online search. It'll come right up. Boom, 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 boom. Why isn't this getting out there? Why don't we know this? We hear it over and over again. Dementia is exploding. But what is the new factor? Think like a scientist. Think like a detective. What is the new factor out there? I commend your attention a book, a guy named Dr. Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. All this stuff is in there. He's been under enormous attack. International bestseller. We got to shut this guy down. Just go to his website. Just look him up online. And he just keeps publishing the newest research. He just keeps publishing. He keeps linking the research on his website about all these things. And the industry is on full-scale attack. There's a huge link between sleep deprivation and obesity. Have we got a national problem with obesity? Anybody looking at this part of the equation? Our military tells us it is a national defense crisis. That we ain't got enough skinny kids to enlist, you understand? So folks, it's a huge factor, the link between sleep deprivation and heart disease. You probably, how many of you heard about obesity and heart disease? Yeah, a fair number of people have. But folks, why don't we have public service announcements about sleep deprivation, heart disease, obesity, Alzheimer's, opioid overdoses, mental illness, traffic deaths, suicide? Why don't we know these things? Well, folks, my dad started smoking in 1941 when he was 5 years old. He said he walked up to the counter in the local general store, couldn't even look over the counter, 5 years old, plunked a nickel on top of the counter, 1941, bought a pack of Bull Durham tobacco and rolling papers, started smoking 5 years old. Right, candy rots your teeth. Well, candy's bad for your teeth, right? It's his money. Cigarettes are good for you. Candy rots your teeth. Here's a cigarette. As your dentist, I would recommend Viceroy cigarettes. Oh, dentist say Viceroys. Yeah. More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Docs smoke Camels. Dentists say Viceroys. Which is best? They're poison. They're all poison. Don't do it. 55 years later, those cigarettes finally killed my dad. They didn't care that they were killing that 5-year-old kid. They just wanted to sell their product. And the same industry that fought all the way to the Supreme Court to sell any game to any kid at any age. And again, it's all about information. When the information comes out. So here's the key now. Here's the dynamic. When my second grade teacher told us cigarettes kill people, I went home and hid my dad's cigarettes. You ever do anything like that? My dad convinced me I wasn't a very good idea. But when those teachers tell us, they can change the path. So folks, I taught a Texas School Safety Summit a little while back. I said, we're going to talk about keeping your kids safe from violence. But odds are you never had a kid murdered. Unfortunately, I bet you've had suicides. Bet you had traffic deaths. Bet you got mental illness all over the place. Bet you got drug overdoses. You want to walk out that door and save a kid's life? This is where you begin, right there. Now, the head of Netflix, look this one up. The head of Netflix said their competitor is sleep. The corporate policy of Netflix is to steal your sleep. Their competitor is sleep. They don't care that they're killing you. They just want to sell their product. Now, folks, I tell my educators nationwide that we can teach our kids 3 things. Number 1 is the number of hours that they need. And starting in kindergarten and first grade, they can do this. They can process this real quick. You can find this. Do an online search, boom, it'll come right up. Here we are, American Academy of Sleep Science. Babies need 12 to 16 hours. Toddlers, 11 to 14 hours. Preschoolers, 10 to 13 hours. School age, 9 to 12. Teenagers, 8 to 10. Adults, 7 hours of sleep, minimum. Your body needs 4 things to survive. You need air, you need food, you need water, and you need sleep. And if you're not getting sufficient sleep, it is kicking your tail and eating your lunch and stealing your life away from you. We got to work on having good quality sleep, and we got to work on it. We used to think, oh, when we get old, we don't need as much sleep. Wrong. We don't get as much sleep. We still need it. It's killing us. And there's things we can do to fix that now and things to work on that, things we can be doing. And folks, another study now, link between sleep deprivation and mental illness. Now this is a study in veterans and sleep deprivation. And basically sleep deprivation, if your body's already under stress when you're sleep deprived, terrible stress. If bad stuff comes down, you're 5 times more likely to get PTSD, 9 times more likely to have a depressive disorder, and 6 times more likely to have suicidal ideation. This is not a causal relationship. It's not even a correlational relationship. It's a toxic interactive relationship. We have an enormous hard time getting a handle. How do you get a handle on PTSD and depression and suicide? Those are hard. But if we get a handle on sleep, everything else comes with it. And so we teach those kids the number of hours they need. And we show them on a clock. Here's the wake-up time. Count backwards that number of hours. Here's when you got to go to bed. And they'll do it. Number 2, they need to sleep in the dark. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite website is ScienceDaily.com. Major study in this sleep lab. Totally dark room. Bathroom light is on and the door is shut. The light coming under the crack of the bathroom door is enough light to stop your body from producing the melatonin that you need. Our bodies are designed to sleep in total darkness. We really are being eaten alive. Just a little bit of light is really causing trouble for us. Now you can combine it, make it as dark as you can, and combine it with the sleep mask. Now this particular sleep mask is Amazon's number 1 seller. Now you just go to Amazon's number 1 seller, and folks, it's got over 85,000 5-star reviews for a stinking mask. I wish one of my books could get 1/10 as many as those reviews for a stinking mask. I sent my grandson off to college. Now, what's most likely to kill my grandson? Suicide, traffic deaths, and drug overdoses. What's the greatest gift I give my grandson? A good night's sleep. He's seen my class. He's helped in my classes. I sent him off to college with 3 different sleep masks. Find the one you like and use it. Call my grandson up at college. Here's the key question. Are you getting enough? How's college going, buddy? Great. Key question. Are you getting enough sleep? Yes, sir. Are you using your sleep mask? Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, it was getting grody. I went online and ordered another one. Boom. That's success in keeping your grandkid alive. That's the single best thing you could possibly do. And so, folks, 3 things we teach those kids. Sleep in the dark, the number of hours you need, and cut off caffeine shortly after lunch. The half-life of caffeine in your body is 5 hours. That means the caffeine you took at 5 p.m. is still at half strength when you go to bed at 10 p.m. And it's making you have bad quality sleep. And by the way, that bad quality sleep, that lack of deep cycle sleep, that's the key factor in Alzheimer's and dementia. We're in the middle of a global epidemic of caffeine abuse. Mega doses of caffeine. Shortly after lunch, just an hour or 2 after lunch, get that last hit and then shut it down. And then when you need caffeine, it'll be there for you. Do you understand? Use it responsibly. But folks, there's the 3 things we can teach our kids right now. You want to walk out that door and save a kid's life? You want to change the tide of our civilization? This is public service announcements. It should be going out. And we got to let them know. There's just simple things we can do to turn the tide. Remember about cigarettes, and how the doctors and the dentists are, oh, this is good for you? Yeah. Go back just a generation. You got Dr. Batty's asthma cigarettes. They're the temporary relief of the paroxysms of asthma. That's where we are. Video games are good for your kid. Well, one thing's for darn sure. If video games get in the way of your kid's sleep, it is irrefutably bad for them. And they are intentionally addictive, seductive, irresistible, and they fought the Supreme Court to sell them to children. This is evil. Where you cross the line into evil. Look, we know that guns and automobiles and alcohol, there's the problem with that, but we accept it with adults. Where we draw the line is selling this stuff to children. And this industry is fighting all the way with all their heart and soul to sell this evil stuff to children. That's where we are. And so we can turn the tide, folks. Get the word out about the incredible harm being done. Get the word out that medical technology is holding down the murder rate. Those slides I showed you, they're going to be available on our host website. And Paul, when we're done, just be sure you tell them we can put it underneath my document camera there and show them your website. In a couple of weeks, we'll have all that stuff I showed you. It'll be there. Boom, boom, boom. And we'd have that help get the word out. Show how bad it is. Show the lives that have been stolen by these dirtbags. Who told us the cops are evil and the criminals are the good guys? And look at the price that was paid. And look how they buried it. And hold them accountable. You do not despise the corporate media enough. You do not understand the magnitude of the harm that's being done. The whole anti-gun thing is them desperately trying to point the finger somewhere else and the harm that's been done. But then the irrefutable thing is the sleep deprivation that comes with this whole package. They have Netflix says that their competitor is sleep. And on one other thing, folks, let's take a brief look into the future. The sick narrative that the cops are the oppressors and the criminals are the oppressed. The result was an explosion of dead cops, record number of dead cops, record number of cops shot. Homicides exploded at levels never seen before. Untold thousands of Americans slaughtered. Vast numbers crippled, maimed, harmed. So now the narrative is that our president is Hitler. And regardless of your politics, you've got to recognize that kind of language has repercussions. We saw what they did by saying that the cops are evil and the cops are slaughtered. We saw what they did by saying murder is good and killers are good and homicides exploded. Now they're telling us that the president is Hitler, the most evil man who was responsible for the systematic extermination of 6 million Jews. And then they tell us that everybody that voted for him is Nazis? That kind of language, that sick narrative that's being pumped out, regardless of your politics, you must recognize there's a price for that there's blood on their hands. And I pray that we're wrong. We're looking at a summer of rage. And when 2020 and 21 happened, we didn't even know how bad it was. We didn't understand the homicides. It was mostly peaceful riots, yes? That was the media's lie. Oh, now we need to cut through that garbage. And when the summer of rage comes on, and when these things are coming, and I pray that I'm wrong, but when you see daycare massacres and school bus massacres, what's left to stun us? It's not about what's in their hand. Folks, Brazil had a daycare massacre. Belgium had a daycare massacre. China's had repeated daycare massacres. And I'll show you the slides and show you the video clips on this. And so when these daycare massacres and school bus massacres happen, don't blame what's in their hand. Recognize that they got to get fame. Watch the media turn those killers into celebrities and understand that's why it happened. Every time the media shows you the picture and tells you the name of this guy that slaughtered this daycare full of helpless children, understand what's going on and why it happened and where it came from. And what's the oath we swore at the beginning? Justice for all. And every one of you are peace officers. And every one of you swore an oath to justice. And love means the worse it gets. How do we fight? How do we fight evil? With love. What's the opposite of evil? Love. As we love our God, as we love our nation, as we love our children, as we love our way of life, it's time to fight. And we fight with information. For the first time in history, we can go around the media. We all have people we can link to. We all have people we can distribute the information to. We have radio shows and influential people to get the word out. And have faith in our nation, have faith in our way of life. But never despair. Remember, in the end, everyone dies physically. That doesn't mean God failed. In the end, every nation falls over my dead body. That doesn't mean God failed. Every nation falls, every person dies, but eternity continues. Stay focused on the big picture. Believe in who you are. Believe in what you do. And as you go about that noble and virtuous endeavor as informed, motivated American citizens, and God bless you, your family, every endeavor, and God bless America. Thank you. Hey, so I'll be in the book mode, and Paul will put the website that all these electronically will be posted. You can distribute them, disseminate. We'll have those posted on their website and other locations as time goes by. And I'll be in the book mode. I know the author, get them signed for you. We take credit card, debit card, food stamps, green stamps, Bitcoins. We take them all. Paul, we got something put underneath there on my document camera, the website for them to turn to have all those slides available. You can just write on underneath there if you like, and we'll have that available to them.
I'm going to hand it back to you. So,
all right.
Yeah, if you will go to IllinoisFamily.org, and click on the video section. Eventually this will be put up for you. Hopefully if you haven't signed in yet, you can do so and we'll send up a flare, so to speak, when the videos are ready. So are you ready to close? Or should I just say thank you and let's give you a round of applause?
Let's close everything out in prayer.
There you go.
And God's word says, wherever two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in your midst. When we have a prayer buddy, your prayers have extra mojo. Do you understand? Now let's raise our voices up in prayer. And we should shoehorn everything we do in prayer. We should bookend it in prayer, sandwich it in prayer. The pastor began, and please allow me the privilege to wrap us up in prayer. Lord, we thank you for these great Americans who have chosen to take time out of their lives, to take an evening out of their lives, to gather together. It's a rare and precious thing in this day and age. We thank you for these men and women who love their nation and love their children and love their God. We ask you will guide us and protect and guide our nation. We need you so desperately, Lord. We turn everything that is dear to us back to you. We take our families, we take our nation, we take our lives and we give them back to you, knowing that only you can truly protect and care and guide all that's dear to us. And we pray these things and we hold them up to you in love and in thanks and in the holy name of Jesus. And all the people said, amen. Praise God.
Once again, let's thank Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. Thank you. Please stick around and visit with him. He'll sign books and so forth, and we really appreciate you all turning out. Please share this information with your circles of influence and stay in touch with IFI. Appreciate it.